And ladies and gentlemen, my name is Arcane Static, and today we're going to talk about Little Nightmares. I know there's a lot of theories about this game out there, but the first issue of the comic just came out a couple days ago, and I am eager to share some bits of theory crafting that I've done regarding that comic and the game. Let's start by talking about the game a little bit first, since the comic introduces a bunch of new aspects. There seem to be 3 casts of children in the game that we see over the course of the story. There are the children who sleep in the cribs attended by that janitor early in the game. They are not caged, at least not in any meaningful way, and they get to sleep on mattresses with sheets, and the janitor seems to take care of them, going so far as to check on them while they sleep. I bet that the child that gives Six the bread at the beginning of the game is part of that cast. They seem to be well cared for, and are not in any kind of weird punishments. The second cast is the caged child cast, where all the rest of the living children are. They're put into these tiny cages and given to the chefs, or stacked up in storerooms, and pretty much can't bring themselves to even react to Six at all, even when Six uses one of their cages as a stepping stone to reach a switch. These kids are, at most, food, or worse. They've lost their individuality, their identities. It's as though they've been brainwashed out of it. The last set of kids are the ones that tried to escape and were turned to stone by the security system eyes. There are a few of them visible when Six first encounters the security system, and they're all caught in poses of distress or surprise. These are the rebel-like kids who actively try to escape the prison. Six might be included in this cast, except she's the only one that isn't stone, yet. This is the cast that gets told, this is what happens when you try to escape. And you get turned to stone. What we don't know is how or why there are so many kids on the Maw, or how they get there, or how long any of them have been there. There's a strong notion that the caged kids get killed and cooked up for weird passengers, but we don't know anything about the cribbed kids. And as for the rebels, well... no. So before we get into the new stuff that the comic introduces, here are my current theories. The only time we see any living thing getting onto the Maw is when the new passengers are coming on from the relatively normal-looking boat. This means that either they bring kids in at that time from that boat as cargo, or that they also come on as passengers. The last one is unlikely though, as if we sit and wait and watch outside of the Maw, all we see entering are the weird adult figures. There's another possibility though, which we'll get into in a bit. The only child we see that has any measure of freedom that isn't Six is the one who gives her the bread, who's sitting at a table behind some bars. That child doesn't freak out or raise an alarm or anything when they see Six, though. All that they do is toss some bread to Six, watch her eat it, and then curl up on the bench. This indicates that the crib children may be sympathetic to the caged children, and may or may not actually be in the process of losing their will to live an identity themselves. The crib cast might just be a step on the way to being caged. How many more children are there like the bread child? Are there any others who are rebel cast but haven't yet started their escape yet? Are there any more like Six? We have only one indication that there might be other escaped children in the Maw, and it's an easy to overlook piece of information. Near the ending portion of the game, there's a single crayon drawing of a girl in a yellow raincoat, stuck to the wall in a little corner, low enough that the quote-unquote adults might not see it. It's there far before Six arrives, which means one of 2 things. Either, A, there are other children who know about Six for some reason, and who have, for some other reason, drawn a picture of her to put up on the wall. Or B, Six drew a picture of herself, put it up on that wall at some point in the past, and then went to the weird basement with the suitcase afterwards. Given that we see no other free children, the second theory is probably the most viable. But wait, there's more. Let's step into comic book territory now. The comic opens with Six escaping from one of the chefs through one of the holes in the walls, and discovering a small coven of what appear to be other children gathered around a fire. They all seem to be wearing the same kind of clothes that Six does, capes or bandages or coats with hoods. One of them definitely recognizes her. which lends credence to the theory that the crayon drawing was done by someone who wasn't 6. There's a specific line that catches my attention, too. "You're not supposed to be here." Why not? Is 6 not just another kid on the boat? Well, that's a theory to discuss in the next video, so let's keep going for now. The kids seem surprised that 6 is being chased by the terrible cook monster as well, and begrudgingly allow her sanctuary by the fire, especially after having seen one of those weird goo worms come after her as well. They ask how she got there, what she'd seen, and we're served with a flashback to the streets of a twisted city, with those terrible fat people walking along and seemingly ignoring her. Then, a monster kind of like the janitor shows up. This one is apparently called the Ferryman, according to the blurb about Volume 2 of the comic at the end of the first one, and alerts everyone to 6's presence, culminating in her being caught and taken to the maw. This actually helps to refute the other theory that's going around right now, that 6 is the daughter of the lady. The 6 we know, as she is now, wasn't on the maw for a very long time. She wasn't born there. She was caught in a city recently. We see an interaction with the bread child that we don't see in the game, where the child asks 6 what the last thing she remembers is, and warns her that if she doesn't tell somebody, she will forget completely. Does this mean that the maw siphons off the memories of your past while you're there? There's another recollection, a montage, that retells the interactions that 6 had with the bread child, the janitor, the chefs, the diners, and the lady, which makes it seem like this comic takes place after the end of the game, despite her having escaped from one of the chefs just before that. So, how does time work in this place? Is it different? Surely this comic can't take place after the end of the game. No, if that were the case, 6 could just drain the essence of the chef and not worry about anything. We're also treated to another scene of the ferryman rowing a rowboat with 6 in it towards the maw, and it's indicated that he's some sort of supernatural being that waits for its chance to snatch up children and bring them to the maw when they're in some kind of trouble. One of the other children begins to tell a story about how they ended up on the maw, half as a way to make 6 remember more, and half as a way to make sure that he hasn't forgotten his own story, it seems. The ferryman shows up in that story as well. We'll talk about it in another video. But it seems that that child made a deal with the ferryman, and that's how that child ended up on the maw. Do children have to make deals with the ferryman, as though making a deal with the devil? Who knows? So that's the end of the first issue of the comic, but it raises a lot more questions. When does this comic take place? Is it canon to the game world? Who are the other kids? Who is the ferryman, and why and how does he have weird magic powers? Why didn't we see any of these other kids, or even any other indications of them during the game? Did one of these kids draw that crayon picture of 6? Who is 6? Well, the next volume comes out in June sometime, so it should be out pretty soon. Look for another video on it when it comes out, and then once all 4 issues have come out, I'll do a Manga Bite style video recapping the whole story. Go and buy the comics on Comixology or at your local comic book shop. The art is so good, it's just confusing. If you guys have any comments on things that have happened that might lend credence or to take away from some of the theories that I've mentioned just now, please put them in the comments. I'd be more than willing to discuss them with you. And who knows, maybe I'll put them in the next video that comes up. The next video that comes up, we're going to talk about that popular theory that 6 is the daughter of the lady, and why that may or may not be true, especially given the evidence in the comics now. So, look forward to that one. Hopefully that'll be out soon. I'd love for this video to be out on Wednesday, my Wednesday, which would be a bunch of your Thursdays. A bunch of your Tuesdays. I don't even know how time works. How does time work here, let alone in Little Nightmares? But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, the like and subscribe buttons are waiting just below this video to give you more information about something that you thought you had all the information for. You can also follow my socials. That's the Facebook and Twitter that are in the description box. And if you feel like it, you can throw some support my direction at the Patreon link that's down there as well to help me keep making videos like this one. Please also, if you're interested, click on one of the other videos that comes up in the end card to watch some of those. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.